So, welcome to Workspace Wednesday on this beautiful sunny day in March. These are, of course, the updates for February, as announced by Google. A reasonable number today, not a huge number. So, this is the third time of announcing this. There's clearly something they can't quite fix, and some of you might actually have it because it did start rolling out on the 3rd, and we're 2 days after that, so who knows. But when this first arrived, I was really excited. I think this is a great thing. I don't know what your chat space is like now, but we've got loads and loads of spaces and loads of individual chats, and it's a messy interface. So the fact that you can actually now start to organize them, usual proviso, start rolling out on the 3rd, 15, I think it's 15 working days. They say 15 days, but I think they mean 15 working days. So you're looking at up to 3 weeks before they necessarily get round to your particular domain. But you will be able to basically group conversations into a new kind of tab on the left there, because currently all you've got is your direct messages and your chat spaces. So you'll be able to add other ones in, and you can see in the little GIF there. The shortcuts are already there, but there's an important one that they've added in as an additional thing. So I really quite like that. I think that's a great thing, that you've got the option to do that should you want to. When it eventually arrives. It's been promised 3 times now. So, but I did check this morning. There's been no update on the release date, so it should start rolling out in the next few weeks. So, I think that'll be quite nice. So that's a good start. I'm pleased that that's going. This is a really nice little additional piece of functionality for in the accessibility section in Meet. And you can now, if you're sight impaired, for example, you might not necessarily see the reactions popping up on the screen, for example. So you've got a number of ways that you can set how you hear the reactions that happen within the session. So it's quite nice that you're a little bit more involved, even if you are sight impaired within a Meet. So that's quite nice. And they're in the settings under the reactions bit. You'll see it there. But usual proviso, if it's not there, it will be there within a 15-week. Bit the old topics are welcome. Oh yeah, it is a bit, isn't it? That's true. I'd forgotten about those. That's true. It is, Andy. It's very similar to that, but just a better way to organize it. I think that's the thing. So it's a good thing that they've gone and bit the bullet and done that, which is good. So Google Sheets. I mean, I've got a reasonably good internet connection here. I've not had a huge problem with the speed of Google Sheets, but they're telling us now that the speed with which things will happen on a day-to-day basis will be much quicker. So filters will be applied quicker. The copy and pasting from one spreadsheet to another will be quicker. I suspect it might be, I'm seeing a hands up from Carl, it might be people in large organizations that have got massive spreadsheets. They may well feel the pace more acutely than I would, because our data might be much smaller than yours. And you're looking at tens of thousands of people, aren't you, in a lot of the stuff you do, data fields rather, so millions of data fields. So hopefully you should begin to feel the benefit of that. If you haven't already, then hopefully very soon, which is good. So that's quite nice. Anything that improves the speed is a good thing. Calendar interoperability between calendars is a big thing, isn't it? It's always been a bit of an issue. Outlook and, well, Google and Microsoft, I say this a lot, they're like 2 giant internet children sulking with each other's toys. They don't want to play together properly. And surely it's not beyond the wit of all your developers to get this to work a little bit better. But they're making headway, and it's tiny steps, but the singing experience should now be a little bit more improved. And your administrators on the Microsoft side can use your PowerShell to make filters for those kinds of messages. You can also tidy them up and put them into labeled or however you choose to manage them. So it's just giving you a little bit more access. I mean, it's technically that should hopefully appear tomorrow with James as well, because it's more of an admin person thing, a techie person thing. But I thought you hopefully will see a better syncing of calendars if you're using calendars across more than one offering happening soon. So Notebook LM and Notebook LM Plus are now available as Google Workspace core services. So your terms and conditions, which are your core service agreement, they now apply to Notebook LM and Notebook LM Plus. So you've got that added extra level of protection that comes with those terms and conditions, which is good. Notebook LM, of course, is available to everyone. Notebook LM Plus is available on paid subscriptions, and I think on Education Plus, if I remember rightly. I didn't actually not put the labels on here to say, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Smart chips have been here for quite a while. This is a particularly nice one in that if you do choose to convert a lot of emails into smart chips, you'll notice the second part of the animation there on the left allows you to decide how they get displayed. So you can actually change the format of them to first name, last name, first name, so on and so forth. So it just allows you to do a bit more. I presume that's all dependent on what's in the directory. So if you've got Mr. Farrell rather than Paul Farrell in the directory, then that's not going to necessarily be that useful a tool, but it's just ways to present the data in a little bit more detail to suit your particular need and when you're working with data on the spreadsheets, which is kind of quite nice. I mean, people seeing that AI pop-up option, you should see it as you highlight stuff. If there's an option to convert it or to analyze it, you should see the AI four-pointed star, and they say, do you want to analyze this data or do you want to convert to chips? That even on a free version, that should keep popping up now. Even if you haven't got a paid Gemini license, that should pop up. I'm seeing that around, which is nice. It makes things a little bit tidier for you. Got a question, Dave?
Yeah, more of an observation. I'm literally just using that now, and I'm trying to process data that's on a sign-up sheet for a training session I'm doing tonight, and it's just, it popped up. I clicked on the analyze my data, and it told me that there was 3 duplicate entries in the attendee list, which I hadn't even spotted. So it's excellent. It's amazing that it's that little nudge sometimes, and the analysis is really good. So just want to give that feedback.
Yeah, but my only it is AI is getting better and better and all the time, and in Sheets is getting better, and I'm really liking it more now. There's 2 things in Sheets. I know it's not in my presentation. 2 things I want in Sheets is I want the Sheets to be able to go into Notebook LM, so I can do some chunky analysis with it, and I want the charts that it creates to be proper charts. So once it's created a chart, if I want to give it a more of a corporate look, I can change the view of it. Whereas it will make charts and they look perfectly accurate based on the examples I've tried, but they don't actually create charts. They create images of charts, so you can't edit them afterwards. So not to do with this, but it's a good thing. Imagen 3 is now available across all your Google Workspace things. So you'll notice you've got, there's a note in today's presentation about this, the image bit within slides and docs and things has changed now. So you've got a number of things. You can go for stock photographs and a whole load of different things that you can choose, so you can be more selective about what you search for when you're searching for an image. And remember, in reality, it's much easier if you're doing a web search for images, do it in the document, because then you don't have to worry about copyright, because it should be Creative Commons. And that's what we're told by Google, that the image search within a document is Creative Commons. If you go and do a Google search, you've got to remember to go to your tools and change tools to Creative Commons, so you're not breaking copyright. There's a better way to do that, is to search the web inside the documents to make sure that you're following copyright rules. But this just is making that whole thing a little bit neater, really. The Help Me Create, of course, only appears if you've got an education license, or have got Gemini Education Premium or Gemini Education. But the actual stock images and the Google search, of course, is a standard one. So whoever's in it, whatever level of license you've got, you'll get that bit. So remember that little bit about the search. That's probably really meandering and have confused you all about that whole thing. Imagen 3 is really, really good. I really like it. I was having a play with it last week and earlier today. It does some really good images, and it's not got, and if anyone's tried to create images using Gemini in a Google Doc, if you ask for an image that includes a human face, sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't quite understand why it doesn't do that. If I say, show me a busy classroom full of students, it sometimes say I can't do it. If I say, show me a busy classroom full of giraffes writing, then it'll do it. So it can do the image creation, but for some reason it's still not fully there with the human image face. That I'm not experiencing that problem in Imagen 3. And I think that link on this one, on one of the slides, takes you direct to Google's ImageFX website, which so you can even just play with the image thing itself if you haven't got a Gemini license. So I'm not sure it's this one or one of the others, but it's in one of the links. It probably is that one. This is really rather neat. I like this a lot. The that when you've finished a meet and you've got the recordings, you've literally got a toggle button that allows you to share with, in this example, with students. So I presume this has come out of Google Classroom, but I'm expecting this to appear in all of them so that you can decide, do all the people who attended get to see the documents within that, which is kind of quite nice, should you choose to do that. So that's quite nice. Nice little, it makes it easier to sort that out, doesn't it, with literally one button and it's done, rather than having to add people in or anything. Dave?
Yeah, just noticing that that's the LTI, the Learning Tools Interoperability. So that's for people who are using Google tools that aren't with Classroom but with the third-party LMS, isn't it?
Oh right, of course, yeah.
So I've not actually seen that, but it would be a welcome addition to Classroom and to Google Meet as a whole. But hopefully that line saying same for other Meet artifacts to follow means that there's more work to come.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Dave. So this is, again, more of a techie one, and hopefully James will go through this tomorrow in more detail. Data classification in labels in Gmail on mobile devices is now available. I think this has got a huge potential. I've talked about labels before, I think, and it could be that it's a non-technical person not really understanding it, because I don't ever get a very warm reception for them when I ask people about them. Generally, some people use them, but not seeing a lot of use from the times that I've asked. It seems to me that one, you can automatically apply. You can set rules in the admin panel that says if there's financial information there, if there's student information in there, automatically apply a confidential label. So you can do that with any document that's created. And once the label's applied, you can then do another rule that says if it's got a confidential label, do not allow to share external. And so it seems to be a really nice tool to allow to manage access to your data, so you don't lose data out of your organization to things. So it seems to me a really good thing. But you've also now got the option for people to assign labels themselves soon. It's not here yet. I checked this morning, either on the web-based or on the Android version. You can't do it at the moment. But it seems to me a really useful thing to think about. And it's a long list. Take the link and look at it, because depending on the license you've got a label manager and the option to add DLP rules with labels or not. There's all sorts of different versions of permissions, which would take up another entire slide. So I thought I'll leave you the link. You can take the link and read precisely how that works. But it seems to me a really useful tool to help you manage the security of your data, particularly with things like financial information, student information, all that kind of stuff. You know, any personally identifiable information. If you can automatically apply rules, and I suspect you probably need to write several, wouldn't you? One wouldn't necessarily cover it. You know, if it's about student names, or if it's about their reference numbers or medical conditions, or you could write a whole series, couldn't you? But once they're written, you'll need to do them once, don't you? And they will hopefully keep your data safer. So that's what that one's about. Okay, there's a little drop down in this image here, which you can see, and this is the same drop down. I should have probably made that bigger. Same drop down as you now get when you click on an image option in Docs or Sheets or whatever. You get this long list, and we mentioned it a minute ago when I was ranting about images and things. You've got the choose from stock photographs, upload from a computer, search the web, and then we talked about the importance of using that option as a tool, or the help me create at the top. So you've got multiple options, and then the usual three at the bottom there. In terms of actually how you go about creating the images that you want to create. So they've done a lot of work on images. This banner image that they've started to create has been, I've seen in documents now, which is kind of quite nice. Just adds a nice little bit of interest to the front page, makes it a more interesting document to see when it first arrives. So just to be aware that there's those things there. And this little pop-up is great, because it also, if you've got dealing with an image in a slide deck, you get the option to go straight to crop, which of course you can imagine I do a great deal when I'm preparing these slide decks. So rather than having to go to the menu at the top, it's there just underneath and pops up when you select the document, the image rather, which is kind of quite nice. I've done a little play with this yesterday, quizzing the C-Learning team about their consumption of fruit. This is really nice, really simple to do, literally /poll, and it adds a poll into the chat, and then you can ask people opinions about things. A long time coming. There's been other polls. Is it Polly? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's been around as an additional third-party app, but this looks like it's a Google one built into it. Literally /poll, and then it's added in there. and you can just I think about the 8 or 9 options into the question I asked. So I quite like it. It's nice just to get a flavour of things. If you're trying to coordinate dates with people, might be a useful thing to do like that kind of thing. So, Carl?
Oh, just a quick one on this. I always, if somebody's come from another organisation where they use Outlook, they always ask me about polls in emails. Has anybody seen anything for that?
No.
I
So
thought
in Outlook, you can create a poll directly into the email, can you?
exactly, yeah.
I wonder whether this might appear.
It's more like the Outlook one, like you've got the smart chips and the documents where you can put a thumbs up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that in Outlook.
Right.
So it's just a general question, just about polls.
Yeah, I guess for the reactions in Gmail. I know it's just like, if all you're going to send is a thumbs up, don't waste my time by making me read an email. If that conversation can go in chat if you want to respond with emojis, but.
Yeah, that's true. And you can actually, don't forget, insert a form into an email. Doesn't always work with clients that aren't Gmail, of course. So you can't guarantee it. And if it's multiple pages, when they click next, it'll just take them out of the email in any client. So they could just literally put the reaction question into an email and embed it. A bit of a workaround, not what you're asking for, Carl. I know that, but it's kind of a halfway house, isn't it? Okay, well, this is great. This is nice. Like I say, I used it for a piece of nonsense. Chris, of course, doesn't eat vegetables and fruit. Of course, that pale pallor tells you that he never leaves the house, or he's too wealthy and only eats meat, because vegetables and fruit are for poor people. Isn't that what people used to think? This I like as well. I talked a minute ago about improvements to the way you organize all the chats and chat spaces, and that being a good thing. This, I think, might also be quite a good thing to kind of clip the key bits that you need onto a board temporarily whilst you're doing a particular part of a project, and then when that bit's done, you unpin those and pin some others for the next stage and things. So it's going to appear as a tab. It's not very clear on this picture how it works. The text tells us it'll be a tab, so I'm assuming it'll be chats, shared, tasks, board, but because they've opened the board, I can't verify that, but somewhere there will be a tab that you click and you can pin on documents and little messages that people can just go to, but everyone within the chat can use it, and only the managers of the chat can go off and reduce what access people have to editing that board. It wasn't on my chat this morning, but it might be on yours. That seems to be a good thing. Yeah, I think I remember maybe a year ago, could even be 18 months ago, I did a slide where there's about 50 odd upgrades either coming or just about to arrive or coming in the future about chat. And I think there's been a lot of work done in chat to add more and more functionality, and I think we use it a huge amount. I'm sure many people on the call do as well. It's a great resource. I don't think it reduces the number of messages you get, but it reduces the focus and the way that you deal with them. So I quite like that everything doesn't have to come in via email, because it feels a bit too formal. So the chat is a great thing. If you're not using it, I would encourage you to think about, is there a way you could? And this board gives you a little bit extra functionality, which is great. So that's really quite nice. You've got again, this wasn't an hours this morning, I did check, the option to, within the direct messages, if you've got a group of people in direct messages, you can actually then name that chat. It's kind of a bit more like a space, isn't it, in effect, by being able to name it. Any visual integration, I missed the message then, Andy, what was the message? Any visual integration like the board is good, rather than clicking to other tabs and back. Yeah, I think they're getting there. I think you're exactly right, Andy.
Yeah,
Are you big users at your place?
Yeah, I think it's Dave and I were chatting about this a bit yesterday, in so far as it enables it to be a bit more self-serve, rather than an email where it stays unread until you go and have a look at it. Some of the emails that are used within an organisation as round robins, you really don't want to see them, whereas these types of features in chat allow you to have a look when you're ready to look. It's just a lot more flexible and less intrusive in a way, and also more of what we do in the real world. In the real world, we don't send emails to colleagues and family members to let us know we're going to be 10 minutes late, or we'll see them, after work one night, we send a message. So it's always been a conundrum as why don't we use that within the workplace, that same sort of mindset of leaving emails for more formal communication and using chat for more day-to-day, less informal. To Dave's point on emojis and things, that it seems that some workplaces just don't really want to use chat, and yet it's not in line with what happens in the real world. So
no,
I'm quite pleased about all these little drop-in features and the benefits coming out of it. That it may well leverage some organisations.
I think you've accidentally muted yourself, Andy.
Or did that switch itself off or all the time?
Yeah. We heard most of it, but just the last 20 seconds or so.
Off. Now, I'll tell you why. I tap my hand on, do my hand gestures below the.
Right. Okay.
So yeah. No, I was just saying that for email-heavy organisations, maybe like ourselves, then any of these little features that make it more usable in terms of that are better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly, because like you say, that's the way it works in the real world. That's where your staff communicate. This is the formal and the informal, and to have tools for both is really important.
Yeah, it's really bizarre how within workspace cultures that you leave that head at home and you come into work with oh no, I'm going to send everybody an email.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. I'll let you carry on.
This, I also think, is a really nice little feature. So you're going to get the option soon to update access or update roles or permissions for documents. And when it arrives, if you said you want to update, in this example, the Smith profile, a little window will pop up and say, well, actually, do you want to update just the Smith profile one, or do you want to update the access to the folder? So I really quite like the fact that you've got the option to make that choice. So yeah, there will be times, won't there, when you just want to restrict a single folder or inside a folder or a single document inside a document for whatever reason. Yeah, but there might also be times when it's handy to be reminded, isn't it? You're removing the access to that document. Is that enough, or do you need to think bigger and restrict it to all the project documents in this thing? And it's currently, it will come to Drive and shared Drive. Yeah, it's going to take a long while for it to get there, and that's why I've mentioned in this, that is the correct date. They're saying that it's kind of a 1-year project for this kind of update to all the sharing experiences, so it'll come out in dribs and drabs, and it'll all be finally done by February 2026. Is that going to be the first mention of February 2026? Surely. So say again, Andy?
Sorry, Paul. I had a senior moment then. I was just thinking parent folder and Drive, thinking of classroom and parent and guardians, and no, I just realised it. The IT speak of parent and child in terms of a folder hierarchy. No, it threw me a little there. Yeah, because I know they've made some progress in terms of releasing some changes on Google Classroom with where if you have a Gmail account, you can now teachers can now share the classroom with the guardians so that they can see the classroom, not just the classroom summaries. And I just for a moment was thinking that was on the back of that, but it's to do with the parent-child one. So yeah, I'm back in the real world now.
Excellent. Interesting, Carl. A really useful tool when you've got staff leaving, to be reminded where all their sharing is, and hopefully it never happens to anyone, but you do sometimes have staff leaving under a cloud, so to identify where all the
Paul's frozen.
I was just wondering.
They all are.
Yeah.
It's kind of quite.
Oh, you're back,
No,
Paul. You're there.
Am I back? Sorry. Yeah. A temporary lost connection at this end.
Just a tiny little,
there.
Tiny little glitch there.
Little glitch. It's part of this sending the internet signal up to my new house in dribs and drabs. That's what it is. One bite at a time. So I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, I talk a great deal about the sharing, because I think the sharing is crucial to understand. That's the most significant difference between that and other systems that they might use, that they've got to understand the impact of sharing, and it's really, really important to understand it, and to remember to go back and remove sharing when it's no longer necessary, or set a timer so it gets an expiry date, so it expires at the time you're required. You know, contractors on site, they need to be able to read your terms and conditions and your child safety protection regulations and all that kind of stuff. They can be all web-based, that's fine, but you turn it off at the end of the day because they don't need it. Those kinds of things. So Theo, you got a hand up?
Yeah, Paul, sorry, yeah, thank you. Sorry I was late. Thank you. I was late for this. Paul, you just mentioned that, I was going to ask that, and you mentioned the timing. Can you apply that on a folder level? That's just a file level, isn't it? Or can you apply that at the drive level? Do you know that? So that's one question. The other one I was going to ask, this permission thing, I don't know if anyone has tried it yet. If does this work in the same way as the Windows NTFS work, where if you set at the parent folder, then you can essentially go trivial on the subfolders, or this is purely just on individual files?
This particular piece of functionality is the first part of a set of changes to the way that they offer you the option to organize your sharing. And the scenario of this example is that you go to change the sharing permissions of a document, and it just reminds you, would you like to do it for the whole folder? That's the first step. That's the first bit of functionality they've got. And whether it links to NTFS, I have no idea. I don't think I even know what that is. So someone else might be able to answer that.
Yeah, and I think what you usually do, you'll give everyone a read access, for example, on the root folder. And then you can restrict access to to parent folder, subfolder, so to speak.
All right, okay, I see. Dave, you want to come in?
Yeah, it's not quite the same, which would make so much sense if it was, and it's a thing that I've been asking for over a decade now with Google Drive. It's more about, you give everybody access to the top level folder, and then you can restrict individual items underneath that. Phil Bainbridge shared a really useful video in the monthly chat group. So if you're not a member of that, then give Chris or Paul a shout, and I'm sure they'll add you to it. But I'd recommend having a look at that and then just having a play with it to get your head around it. It's slightly different from NTFS. It's still not as granular as NTFS sharing, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah,
It reduces the need for having so many different shared drives. For us, particularly as a MAT, we tend to have a shared drive for estates for each school, and then for HR for each school, and all these kinds of things, because we have different groups that need access to it. In theory, now we can contract some of those and just have fewer shared drives with more specific permissions or more restrictions underneath. One of the other things, though, that I still think is a little bit unfortunate is that even if you've had your access restricted, you can still see that a folder exists, or that an item exists, and that's not always ideal. So, so better, but not quite NTFS yet, Theo. Hopefully that helps you anyway.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's cool. I thought it was too good to be true when that was mentioned.
It could be that the whole process will be better by February 26th. It might be that it's a much closer to the granular approach that you get with NTFS. I said that almost as if I knew what I was talking about, didn't I? Andy, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just think, echoing that really of what Dave said, I think Phil Bainbridge's little video within that was really useful. And I think having that ability to be able to set a really wide permission at the top and then restrict it lower down is probably what a lot of people have been wishing for many years. I take Dave's point that it's not quite as granular as the system Microsoft offers, but it's a big step in the right direction where you can amalgamate lower level shared drives that you currently have due to those restrictions and roll them all up into a higher level, while still being granular enough to knock people out of having permission to certain lower level folders and files and documents. So I think it's absolutely a step in the right direction.
Excellent, Chris.
Yeah, I'll share that video that Phil's posted in our chat group with the wider community, and you know, if anybody wants to join that, it's well worth doing. All you got to do is give me a shout, and I'll make sure you're copied into that. So that will go out with the videos and slide decks on Thursday evening, all being well this week.
Yeah. Excellent. Moving on. This I really like as well. You've now, when it arrives on your domain, you will have the option for, if you're using closed captions, someone could come along. If they're arriving late to the meeting, they could scroll through the captions and see what the conversation has been about before they actually then start to contribute. So you don't have to stop the meeting and summarize for them. They can literally just do a quick skim read through to get a flavor of what the meeting was about. That seems to be really useful. And it's the last 30 minutes of a meeting that it saves. So if they arrive at 35 minutes in, the first 5 minutes are lost. That's the way that it works. But that seems to me a really, really nice little bit of functionality. Got to remember to turn the closed captions on, of course, but once you have, then they've got that option. And that shouldn't make any sense, because if they're arriving late, then that should allow them still to scroll through. You know what will happen with that? I just suddenly thought, well, I'm just talking nonsense. You'll need to read the link. You need to read the link. So this take notes for me in Gemini. I've turned Gemini on earlier, and we had a question about transcripts, and I set the transcripts on. And we've had it that in the past when we've said, Dave, it's your turn to bring the biscuits next week, don't forget to do that, that it adds in a task at the bottom, but it was always been intermittent. And I assume the reason it's always been intermittent is because it wasn't fully functioning yet, and they were just turning it on to test it. Turns out now that if you do set a deadline for that particular time, then it will then start to make suggested next steps as a separate section, and that should now hopefully be consistent each time you apply it. And then that means that Dave will never forget the biscuits again. So that's the way it works. What I quite like is it also gives you smart chips of dates and things, and so you can, I presume you could click on that, it'll take you to the calendar or to the person's email or whatever, which is quite nice. So that's quite nice. More languages. This is a nice and quick one. If you're using a Gemini license, you've got 17 more languages there. If any of those are relevant to you in your school, then you've got those to share with people so they can work in their first language rather than in English, if that's the situation for them. There's a whole load of extra bits appearing in Gemini of late, which I am really, really quite liking. I was having to play with the 2.0 Flash Thinking Experimental and the 1.5 Pro Deep Research. In fact, I will very quickly show you this because I think it's great. Let me just get myself open up here. I'll share this tab instead. So Italian restaurants near the Eiffel Tower was the example they gave in their example. Okay, so I've asked it to suggest some restaurants, Italian restaurants near the Eiffel Tower, and specifically ask it to use maps and then search YouTube for videos. So it then goes through, gives me the answers, tells me all the things I want to see. Couldn't find any videos, if I remember right, from this search. But then at the end, whilst it used Google Maps, it didn't give me the links. So I actually said, well, can you actually give me the links? It then said, lacks the real-time information in some Gemini features. I thought I was going to do that and say, oh, no, it can't do it. But then it did. Gave me the links direct to those places in Google Maps, so I can actually go direct to the places I want to go to. So I really like this. I didn't try the YouTube bit. It didn't find any in this particular example. But I really like that it can do that. It gives me that extra thing. But then if I go to the Flash 2 version of it, it's not good with that. Is it that one? Yeah. This, I think, is a really, really, really useful teaching tool. So it's the same request at the top, and it doesn't give me the answers. It tells me how it does it. So it understands the core request, breaks it down to actionable steps, sets some research criteria, sets refinement things, does the YouTube bit, does the maps bit, combines map with YouTube information. So as if you're doing some work with your students on, you know, how AI actually works, to get this information about these are the steps that I've done to try and get to. I mean, we've got the answers here now, but it talks about the process of doing it as well, which I really quite like. I think it's a really useful teaching tool. So definitely one to think about if you've got that license. Okay, and what I've done is I've just done a quick copy of the table because they got some thoughts about what they think each of the 4 versions are about, based on the task is that you need to do. But want to point out particularly the 1.5 Pro with deep research, they see as a particularly useful tool for educational research. So if you've got people that need to do, doing a thesis or doing some extended writing, then actually it's worth being aware that they're suggesting the 1.5 Pro is the better bet for that educational stuff. So there's things to think about, and I've given you the information about which bits apply to which one, but they're also here as well. You've got them should you want them there. So I think that's a great where am I there? A great addition in terms of the range of things. And I don't think they intended it as a teaching tool, but actually I think that's what it will become, because it's a really useful tool to talk through how the AI tool has actually done that process, which I quite like. Okay, so you remember we were asked at the very beginning about transcripts. If I would do a transcript, I turn the transcript on. If you turn the transcript on and you've got a Gemini license and that's taking notes for me in the background, then you'll start to see that the notes, the summary that you get from the AI and the transcript will appear in a single document together, and you'll get 2 tabs, and you can see it flipping between the 2 tabs. And if you get a timestamp here, look where it says details down the bottom there, you click on the timestamp and it'll take you to the transcript of that particular point, so you can read the detail. So the summary will give you transcripts, will give you timestamps, which you can then click on, which will take you to the details transcript. That seems to me a really nice little addition of those 2 things, that they actually now become a matched pair, and you're able to access the information in those 2 documents that little bit easier because they now come a single document. So that, I think, is a really good additional tool. I mean, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? The summary now, actually, I would say, is actually very good. In the early days, some of the summaries were like 3 sentences, and we'd like had an hour's meeting and we got 3 sentences. That doesn't happen anymore. It's a pretty comprehensive summary of the meeting, but the fact you can now link to the precise detail of what was said, I think, is really very useful. So I like that. I think that's a good tool. This I also really like. Yeah, I'm a big fan of anything to do with accessibility, and I often say when I do my accessibility training that the best accessibility tools are essential for those who have a particular need, but useful for everyone. Yeah, and the example I give is, the little ridge button underneath the Pelican crossings you get. It's if you're hearing impaired, when it's safe to cross, if you're hearing and sight impaired, if you're safe to cross, that starts to rotate. So a blind person or a hearing impaired person will stand there with their finger on this ridge button, and that rotates when the man turns green. Yeah, it was great for them, of course, but it was great for me as a parent, because my kids would arrive at the thing because they've got a grandmother that's blind, and they knew about this, so they'd rush to get to the button and wait for it. It was actually it's a classic example of essential for some, but really useful for others. And this is the same. How often were you going to get a video where it's a whole hour, and you just need to see the one bit, so you can scroll through, because we can skim read quickly and effectively, can't we? Find the bit that's relevant to the bit you want, click on it, and that will take you to that section. So that's the kind of bit of functionality, isn't it, from the screencast tool that's built into Chromebooks now. So that seems to be a really useful tool. And it is a side panel. Just click to open it up, click on the bit you want to go to, and it jumps to that particular bit. So that, I think, is a really, really great additional little tool there with that one. And those are the updates for February. Next update is Wednesday, the 2nd of April, which is my 37th wedding anniversary, which is why you've got a picture of a man at a computer, and it's all alabaster. Any thoughts, any questions from anyone about those updates from today?
Can I just stick a little comment in there, just on on Notebook LM Plus, Paul? That is Gemini, and Gemini for Education and Gemini Education Premium is the way you get access to that. It is available for all the business editions. Google have just dropped Gemini into all the business editions as a compulsory. But from an education perspective, it's just the Gemini licenses that would give you access to that. You do still get, as Paul mentioned, access to Notebook LM with any Google for Education license, but the Notebook LM Plus comes with the Gemini side of things.
Yeah.
So there we go. One thing that somebody did ask me, Paul, actually, and I don't know whether this is still there or not, or whether it's coming. I know it's a much requested feature, is the sharing of Gemini gems, you know, like collaboration and whatnot on those. Is that something that's in yet, or are we still waiting on that?
I've not had any mention of it in a time in a you know, in the near future time map.
Has it been given like it's something we're working on? Or I mean, I know that's one of the things that I hear the most requests for.
I'm always apologising that you can't share them. It seems insane. I've not heard anything at all. My guess would be that it will eventually get to a stage where they're going to share. Going to share them. Why would they not? Because it's a great little tool. And if you're using it for lesson planning and you've got some early careers teachers that you need to be guiding to the right lesson, you just share the head of department makes the gem for lesson creation, and then they share it with the people that need it. So why would you not? So my guess, I've not heard anything definitively. So you know, if you sue me, it wouldn't stand up in court. Although it'd be quite nice to see you, even though it'd be not in a very nice situation. But my guess would be it's almost certainly going to be there. Yeah, they've got sharing in Notebook LM now on the paid versions.
Yeah.
And then Plus. So it's you know, it's what they're doing at Google. They share stuff. So why would they not do this one? So I doubt very much that it's not going to come, but we don't have a time for it yet.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
Can I ask people a question? There's a function to turn a Google document into an audio transcript via Notebook LM. Have people seen that appearing on their documents? I'm thinking I'm having a senior moment or something. I'm convinced I saw it on one of my documents as a banner that appeared across the top, but it's not in any of the menus. So I'm thinking, well, where's it gone then?
I've never seen that, Paul, but we use a bit of software called Read and Write, which a lot of colleges will use for like dyslexia stuff. And actually, you just bring up a bar and there's a button on there, to do the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, you could always just upload it straight to Notebook LM. But I'm sure I saw a banner. Ignore me. Perhaps I'm just going mad, or more mad. It's the effect of working with Chris for so long.
Slightly less these days, Paul. So you should be improving. It's like you're coming off the poison. Yeah, you're starting to.
I'm in rehab.
You're in rehab. Yeah. Something else that I'm not 100% on. I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, Paul. But somebody's actually requested about. They have used like a handwritten but digitally written exam for students, which they've then dropped into Gemini, and they've got it to successfully sort of mark that and make comments on it. And they were wondering whether you can do that with an actual handwritten document that you would then sort of, scan in, digitize in or whatever, and sort of upload to Gemini, whether it would read that or not.
Yeah, you're about to tell us you can upload images. Of course you can. So if it's text, I presume we can read the text. Is that what that is, Dave?
Yeah, so it's not exams, but it's feedback forms from training sessions that we've done. So take the paper feedback forms because people didn't have access to devices during the session. Use our MFDs to scan it to PDF or scan it to email.
Yeah,
and which is in PDF format, and then upload that to Gemini or to Notebook LM and ask it to summarize the feedback for us. It's really good because it takes away any bias. As I always say, some people will take these forms and they'll pick through for all the negative comments and go, oh, that's been a really bad session. Or other people might say, no, there was nothing negative in there. It's been a really good session. But by doing it independently through Gemini or Notebook LM, it does it all for me. So that's a real good use of it. In terms of marking, I would imagine that you would have to upload more than just the script. You'd have to upload some kind of mark scheme or rubric alongside it. But again, that's one of the really good things with Notebook LM is that you're creating a closed ecosystem, aren't you, whereby it's only referring to those documents, not going out to the wider internet and making things up as much.
Yeah. How are you finding the sort of reliability on scrawly handwriting? Is it pretty good with with handwriting? It's not, you know, it can't read a doctor's signature or something like that. You know,
no, I mean it's, you know, I've done it mainly with adults, and they tend to be slightly better than some learners. Although my handwriting is probably still the same as it was when I was 14, because I type everything now, so my handwriting is shocking. But yeah, it's surprisingly very capable
stuff. And like you say, Paul, these things are only going to improve as well. So if it's at a level at the moment where you're getting some great use out of it, Dave, then that's only going to improve as time goes on as well. Fantastic.
Yep.
And I've extracted text from images as well. That doesn't bother me. Even down to when one of my customers sent us a new account with a 15-character password. So I just took a screenshot and put it into Gemini, converted into text, and I just copied and pasted it into the password field. Perhaps it's not the most secure way of doing it, but just that I'm just going to have to keep referencing backwards and forwards. It's just easier to. So yeah, so it does do text, you know, handwritten stuff well. Andy?
Yeah, no, just coming back on a couple of those points. Does anybody use Cursive at all? The Cursive app on a Chromebook for writing notes when they go off site or whenever?
No, not yet.
I have done, but
yeah, I use it a lot because maybe conversely to Dave, my typing's shocking, but my writing's sort of okay, and I can write a lot faster than I can type. So I find it really useful for, you know, sketchnoting, and when I'm taking notes at meetings and things, I take the Chromebook in. All our Chromebooks that we pushed out for staff and students have a little stylus in. So it's really useful for that, for capturing notes and ideas and things. So I'd recommend, if nobody's had a go at using Cursive app, have a go at it. It's really good. I'll find you have to install it on a Chromebook as an app and push it out if you want to pin it or force install it on devices. But it is really good to capture notes and do that. I have had to go uploading some of those to Notebook LM and asking it to summarize like that. It's pretty good. The Google Docs conversion of a PDF to text is not quite there yet. It still needs quite a manual edit afterwards. If you upload that to Docs and then convert that PDF into a Google Doc, it still does quite some intensive, for my handwriting anyway. Might be worse for Dave's, but yeah, just have a go. They're all useful tools, and it's all part of the, you know, conversions and assistance to various things that people find is their natural way of working, really.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Andy. Good. I shall stop the recording then.